Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to our very first episode of Return to EverQuest, a podcast where we revisit and discuss the classic game of EverQuest. In today's episode, we're going to be introducing our show hosts and discussing what characters we've made for a playthrough of classic EverQuest, and also diving into some EverQuest lore. With that, everyone, hello. My name's Anthony Joyce. I'm a best-selling D&D 5e game designer, active duty U.S. Army strategist, husband, father of 3 young boys, and you can find me on Twitter at Thrawn589 or my website, anthonydreams.com. I'm joined by my co-hosts today, Stephen Lankowitz, Carlos Orea, and Derek Joyce. Over to you, Stephen.
Hello, I'm Stephen Lankowitz, a longtime casual player of EverQuest, a habitual alt creator. When not playing EverQuest, chained to my desk working as an auditor. Looking forward to exciting new adventure with old friends, and looking forward to the future. On to you, Carlos.
Hi, everybody. My name's Carlos. I'm also kind of a casual player. I used to play EverQuest way back in the day when it was in 1999, almost, 22 years ago. So it's I'm very excited to go back in here and relive the experience. And now, since it's been 20 years, it seems like we've kind of forgotten everything. So it's kind of like playing a new game. So I'm very excited. Derek?
Hello, everyone. I'm going to keep this simple. I'm a father of 3, a husband of 1, and employed full-time in the public sector. And that's all I got to say about that.
Better than husband of 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, hey, hopefully husband of just 1 there.
You never know these days.
Gotcha. Now that we've introduced all of our show hosts, what can you expect from the show? So we're going to be, we've created characters on the EverQuest live server, Aradune. It's a time-locked progression server. So every 3 months, they unlock a new expansion pack. Right now, they're up to Luckland. And so we're going to be starting there with our characters and exploring the old classic EverQuest zones and be doing the dungeon crawls in those areas. We'll also be exploring a lot of the lore of EverQuest. So when we visit a zone, we're going to pull from TTRPG books on EverQuest or online books and records that exist out there, posts and forums, and try to compile some short, concise lore bits to share with the audience, because it's kind of neat to figure out what the story is after we've played it for so many years. Discuss the history of the game, both its past from the beginnings of how it was designed, through the multiple changes it went through, to the present, and also the future. And we're looking to have this podcast be bi-weekly, so you can expect more from us every other week. Now, let's discuss what kind of makes EverQuest so special, and what did we play growing up, and why do we have a soft spot for this heart? So I'll start first here, and I started also back in, I believe, 1999, right before, a couple months before the Kunark expansion came out. I started playing with my brother Derek, and I made a small gnome character, an enchanter named Wickpuss, and later on made a Shadow Knight ogre named Masher Smasher on the PvP servers. That was Balasek back in the day, which was every person for themselves. And then I went over to the team PvP servers, where it was like the bad people versus the short people and the elves and the good people. So I'm looking forward to reliving that. What else? What are your all's experience with EverQuest?
Anthony dragged me over to EverQuest a few years afterwards, back in 2001. Started with a necromancer named Bakerman and started the adventure. Got sucked in and still playing to this day. Been casual ever since. Was able to get 2 epics on a monk on separate servers, only the 1.0. Haven't done any really major raids, so nothing to talk about there. And Anthony, I think I'm really excited about this, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
I like how you keep saying you play casually, but if this were a job, you'd be getting your pension this year from playing EverQuest.
It hasn't been 20 years, Anthony. It's
sorry. Maybe another 1 or 2 more years, and you'll be good.
More like a few months.
What about you, Carlos and Derek? What do you guys got?
Well, for me, I'm not as hardcore as some of the people here talking. I started with way back in the day with the cute little halflings. Why? Because the Hobbit, and decided to do a druid. That was my main. I tried playing that for quite some time, and it was a lot of fun. But like I said, it was casual. I never really got them higher to other than 50 Then when the Beast Lords came out, then I decided to make a nice little ogre, Wunderbar. And I played that until I decided to go to college. And I couldn't put the time in. So, and I'll say that those were the two main ones. The other ones, the alt characters, really it's not worth mentioning.
How about you, Derek?
Well, it's been about 10 years since I've last played EverQuest, and I've got to say that EverQuest is one of my all-time favorite games because it left me with so many memories. I played EQ on and off between 1999 to 2011 on the PvP servers with my brother, and I got up to level 80 with a necromancer named Bakerman Player Killer, whose sole purpose was to collect the souls of other players.
Oh my god!
Well, my best memories are when you killed somebody originally, and the game allowed you to loot one of the other players' items, including their weapon or chest slot. So it put them back about 10 hours of gameplay. So
It's one of those.
to me, this high risk and reward PvP system is what made the game so great. And
how many crushed souls out there have you caused? How many people have cried losing their items? Oh my gosh!
How many life paths were changed? But now it's time for some relaxing non-PvP or player versus player adventure with my friends. So.
See, I could never do that. I could never go to the PvP because of that fact. If you spend 10 hours and all of a sudden somebody comes in and decides to, kill you or even, befriend you and all of a sudden backstab you and take away your items and sets you back, hours or days, I just couldn't do it. I would just uninstall the game.
Yeah, it was rough back then. I remember, grouping with people and you're best buds by the, 4 hours into a session. And you get low on life, and the cleric, the group, he'll just look at you and he won't heal you that one time. It's about time for him to log off, and he'll just kill you, take your stuff, and log. It was just depressing because you didn't know who to trust. But
Brutal.
here we are.
Sounds like a server for sociopaths.
Yeah, it would take you about 4 hours sometimes to travel back to your corpse to collect your items.
Oh man, the corpse runs were brutal. And at the beginning you lost experience, right? When player killed you as well.
Yeah, you would lose experience, and if you lost a level, you wouldn't be able to use your spells anymore. So you had to go rebuy your old spells, and it was a mess.
How long did this last for?
It was a couple years until they made it so you couldn't lose experience from PvP interactions.
I think now you don't lose experience and you can't loot the items off of people's corpses, which is probably a little bit more forgiving than it used to be, for sure. And, let's talk about kind of where we're looking to go with our new characters. So we have played one session together with our new characters. And for the audience here, we've decided to make all gnome characters for this adventure. And each week we'll go through and talk about a little bit about what we did the following week and where we hunted and how things went. So we're going to release the names of our characters right now, and kind of like we made little personalities and backstories to them for some role play. And I'll start with mine. My character is a small gnome named Nerf and Perf, the enchanter, who doesn't feel very happy with how he looks, so he always changes his self to be taller or more beautiful inside. And my goal for Nerf and Perf is, obviously he's not the best looking fellow. He's become an enchanter to try to figure out how to be happy with himself. But I really want this journey to be about him loving himself for who he is. So maybe at the end, he won't need those spells to change his appearance. He'll just be happy being Nerf and Perf. And, some of the goals I think I have for him I would love to get to level 60 with him and kill Lady Vox and Lord Nagafan. That's like always been a dream, is like killing the two big dragons from back in the day. I've never done that. And I would really like to maybe get the epic for the enchanter. I think that'd be really cool. What about you guys? What is your characters and what do you have in store for them?
Anthony, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm having a bit of a senior moment right now, and I'm kind of forgetting my gnome necromancer's name. I know it ends in a bone.
I know what it is. It's the Tinklebone,
Winklebone,
right?
Winklebone.
There
we go.
That is the weirdest name. I would forget that name immediately if I was you too. I'm embarrassed for that name, Winklebone.
I
very
think it's a
gnomish.
pretty good. I think it's very gnomish. Thank you, Carlos.
Yes, I agree with you.
I decided to go back to a necromancer because it's been such a joy character to play, and it's always welcomed in a group. A lot of DPS, they can offer a lot, do a lot of different things. Also with Anthony, looking possibly to get my epic, but also more or less to do some of the side stuff, such as try to master all the languages and perhaps try to even learn a trade skill.
Okay, trade school. What trade school are you looking at? There's a lot.
Possibly baking.
Oh, it's tying us back to Baker Man. This is like you had a Baker Man character back in the day, and now you're gonna have a Baker with this guy, but he doesn't have the name. It's it's a shame you didn't recast it. But maybe the last name of your Tinklebone,
Possibly
Tinklebone Baker Man or something like that.
Baker Man.
Yeah,
I want to try baking in real life first, see if it works out.
he is. Hey, Steven cooks a mean cookie. He makes a good chocolate chip cookie. Oh my gosh!
You haven't tried
tell
out.
you.
You haven't tried everybody else's.
Yeah. So Carlos, Derek, what about you all? What do you got?
I'll let Derek do the honors.
All right, so my new character is a gnome wizard named EverNerd. He is a tale of a real life nerd who wasn't satisfied with just being a nerd in real life because real life is only temporary. So he wanted to be a nerd for all eternity. So he transmuted his soul into EverQuest where he can remain a nerd forever. That is why his name is EverNerd. And his personality is straight to the point, calculating, and sarcastic.
Love it.
Wow.
Sounds like
So
a gnome, Derek.
you're playing yourself in real life, and you transport yourself into
you.
gnome.
Yeah.
Way to project, Anthony.
I'm just saying, hey, this is interesting. It's like in fantasy, you want to become like a lich for immortality or a vampire. This Ever Nerd figured out he could be a real immortal person by being an EverQuest character. Wow, I like it. It's very interesting.
That's right.
Cool. All right, Carlos, what about you?
Yeah, mine's not as happy as everybody else's. My character's name is Tinklewinks.
I love that name, Carlos.
It is, yeah. It's a fantastic name. But he grew up in Ak'Anon. Unfortunately, he was a son who was born out of wedlock. So the parents decided to pretty much throw him out. He was an orphan castaway who pretty much grew up in the back streets of Ak'Anon. So Tinklewinks only knew pain and suffering through his childhood. He would take shelter from the streets in the arcane library during the nights, and during the days he would go outside and try to get a little bit of money or extra scraps of food that people would give him. But it was not until one of those nights that he was spending in the arcane library that he finally got caught. And the person that caught him was actually a very old and wise mage, and he was very kind and patient. And it was him who actually introduced him to the powers of the arcane. And through that, he found purpose in life. So he promised himself that he will dedicate his life to mastering the arts of mending the wounds and helping the needy. So he became a cleric. And that is Tinklewinks.
Wow.
Sounds like the Pope.
Hey, Carlos,
Yeah.
that was a great story. I fell asleep halfway through. Can you start it again?
Wow, Derek. That's why I thought his character was based on the Pope.
That's EverNerd at its finest, right there.
Derek's eyes glazed over.
Calculating and sarcastic EverNerd. Thank you, everybody.
Wow. So, we did one session. We were up to level 5, which is crazy and we only play for like 4 hours every Saturday. Is kind of what we're doing. 3 to 4 hours. And getting level 5 is a big deal. I remember back when EverQuest originally came out, I remember being, getting to level 5 took me, I don't know, maybe 8 months or a year. I don't remember. It took a long time, but it's crazy how the game has gotten a lot better in terms of quality of life. And I think as we've gotten older as adults, we have kids, we have full-time jobs. So I can appreciate that I can play a game for a couple hours and then get some progress versus before. So what do you all think about that changes coming back and playing in how it's a little bit different? Do you think it's better? Do you think it's worse? What do you all think about that?
It's amazing. If you guys want to see how fast it really goes, you should try the test server, where it experiences exceedingly fast.
Here's the thing, though. The thing I like about the original EverQuest was the fact that dying was such a dramatic event, right? You lost XP, you had to go back and get your stuff, and it was extremely dramatic whenever you actually died. And I feel that now that they decided to go and make it a little easier, just to, I guess, make, like you said, it's a little better for everybody. It's not as punishing to actually play EverQuest. I find it, I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but I find it less rewarding to level up. It takes less time, and now that as we're older, it's more convenient. But I just think that it kind of takes away from that perspective, where it was actually very rewarding to level up and not die, and make sure that you take care of yourself.
Yeah, I agree with Carlos. Before, now it incentivizes you to take more risks because there's not much loss. You could get back to the zone in 10 minutes. But before, when you died, your corpse stayed there. You lost all your health and mana. You restarted. It took you, 2 hours to get back to your corpse because you had to go through all the mobs to get there, and it wasn't easy to teleport from one zone to the next. And when you're playing a player versus player server, imagine running an hour to 2 hours back to your corpse with no items, and in the meantime, you got to worry about all other players that are going to kill you.
You got to
kill you.
You got to worry about the Baker Man player killers.
Now you got another corpse sitting there that you have to go back to, and then eventually 3 hours later, when you get to your main corpse, you got a guy sitting right on top of it that's ready to kill you again.
That's why I don't do PvP.
Sounds like a horrible experience. I don't know
what draws people to the P vs P server in the first place. It's got to be for sociopaths. I swear, who goes around like doing this stuff?
I mean, I will say, in defense of PvP, I'll say that I found that the team PvP was actually really rewarding from a role play experience, because you're not going to have dark elves and ogres and trolls grouping with high elves and humans and barbarians in the lore of EverQuest itself. So it was actually kind of neat where it almost segregated the continent in a way where certain zones were only for good characters and certain zones were only for bad characters. Because if you came into those zones and you were of the opposite alignment of the races there, it was a PvP war that went on. So I found that kind of like more. It wasn't as bad as like Rallo Sec, where anyone can kill anyone. That's a little bit too hardcore. So I liked where you had, if you're an evil character, you can't attack other evil characters. You're grouping with them. But if the elves come, or the good guys, you can fight them. I thought that was cool. With some of that stuff, let's talk about some lore. So, Carlos, you've done some lore, and we've talked a little bit about it before, but let's rehash that now. Derek wasn't here. Let's see if we can stump the chump on that. And I might have some lore myself to add. And let's go. So, what do you got?
Sure. First things first. If obviously this is some kind of some research that we've done online, and obviously some of the sources could be conflicting. So if anybody has any extra information, or if we have misspoke or said something in previous podcasts, please send us an email, let us know, and we'll definitely give you a shout out and redo the correction. So with that said, I kind of wanted first to go and have a little bit lower of the gnomes. And before we started, I wanted to just do a little pop quiz, see if the audience or if you guys can actually give us some of these questions. The first one being, can anybody name who the Duke of Underfoot is?
Overtoe?
Sure.
I knew this one. It was Brel. I don't know if the last is hard.
Sorrel?
Brel Sorrellis, I think.
Yep. That's right. Brel Sorrellis.
Brel Sorrellis. Got it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So he's think of him as the god of the underworld, of all the caves and the nooks and crannies of Norath. And way back in the day, he kind of had a little bit of an inkling to create the most wonderful of all the races in Norath, and obviously that's the gnomes. They are the shortest and the cutest of all the races in Norath. They are known to be inquisitive, and they're always curious and eager to explore. The gnomes hail from Ak'Anon, and it is known as the Clockwork City, full of mechanic oddities. And you can regard them as the hipsters of their age. They're always, inclined to get the latest tech, and they're eager to continue any, advances in technology. But they're also known to dabble in the arcane. Ak'Anon is known to have one of the greatest arcane libraries, and pretty much rivals the library of Aradune. So the gnomes are known to take up all the magical professions, and as you've seen in our podcast, all of us are actually going to be different magic. We're actually going into those classes. And also the followers of Brill Cerilius, they actually believe that all the surface in the world is pretty much a waste of space, and they pretty much find happiness in the caves and the caverns and the tunnels all over Norath. And like Anthony was saying before, we started our one of the first sessions that we did, and we ended up going to Steamfont Mountains. And Steamfont Mountains is located in the continent of Faydwer. Does anybody remember or know where that name comes from? Faydwer?
No.
I'm assuming it's the elves. I can't verify. I don't know. That's a gut. My gut's the elves.
That's right. It did come from the elves when they moved from Antonica. Faydwer in the continent, you can find 3 races. Obviously, the gnomes. You can also find the uglier cousins, the dwarves, and the wood elves as well. And Steamfont Mountain is named for the natural geysers and springs that you find in the rocky peaks. It's also known that dragons used to live in Steamfont Mountains, and you can actually still find some fossilized skeletons you can find one in the valley in the mountains.
It's awesome. I want to see that.
Yeah, there's one in Steamfont Mountains right outside
correct.
the front gates, right?
Yes. And when it comes to as you're low level, you start obviously your adventures in Steamfont Mountains, and you can find a variety of mobs. The majority of ones you're going to find is obviously the rogue clockworks. These are pretty much passive mobs when you first come in, but if you attack one and you kill one, they actually become kill on sight. So every time that I find one of those rogue clockworks, they're going to start attacking you. So you got to be careful if you actually want to start doing that.
Now, the rogue clockworks are like mechanical creatures. They look like a rat or like not a snake, but a spider. So they have different mechanisms, and these little things will kind of group up, right?
Yep. You can also find kobolds. There's kobold camps all in Steamfont Mountains. And also there is one gnome that you will find in the caves, and he is pretty much the cult leader from the Minotaur. So you guys remember who it was?
Meldrath
The Malignant. Yep.
He's like level 30-ish.
Yeah, so you can't just go in there and try to beat him. He's a necromancer, and he has a nice posse of minotaurs, and they can be quite pesky if you try to do that.
Great guy.
One of the things I found interesting about this, now being older and having designed Dungeons and Dragons adventures and whatnot, is kobolds in D&D are scaled creatures that are of the lineage of like dragons and stuff like that. They're almost like dragon-like, but in EverQuest, the kobolds are almost like bears. They look like furry bears. I just wonder why, in a fantasy sense, they're using the same name to describe a creature, but one is a dragon kind of origin, and the other one's like a bear. So I just thought that's interesting. If anybody knows, hit us up. And Carlos, I got a question for you guys now. Carlos, Derek, and Steven. Last time we played, we hunted in Crushbone as well. Does anybody know who is the leader of Crushbone right now?
Emperor Crush.
Emperor Crush. And you know that what's fascinating is I read that there's actually some quest lines in the game. And as a kid, you're hailing people, and then like a bunch of text comes up, and you don't even read that stuff. You're like, okay, man, whatever. I just want to see what quests I can get by looking for the bracketed stuff and typing to them. But there's a quest line, and it makes the story kind of interesting, where in Crushbone, in Emperor Crush's tower, his castle there's a little castle. There is a dark elf ambassador, and the story goes that the dark elves are trying to work some type of treaty and alliance with the Crushbone Orcs to push out the ogres, which I did not know, because I used to be an ogre back in the day, and I would ally with the dark elves. But apparently the ogres are kind of getting shafted by the dark elves, and they're using the orcs to do this. So if you're an ogre and you go to the ogre city, they'll give you a quest to go assassinate Emperor Crush the Dark Elf ambassador so that the treaty doesn't go through, and you got to bring their hearts back. And then you get like a crude stein. It's an enchanter item. It's kind of why I'm interested in it. But it's interesting, I just thought that was pretty cool that there's some political intrigue going on in the world of EverQuest that as a younger, teen, I had no idea that stuff was in there. But now as I get older, I'm reading about it. It's kind of neat.
Yeah. To touch on that subject, did you know that what happened? Why the Dark Elves are trying to help the orcs get rid of the ogres?
Oh,
Why?
So back in the day, the orcs were actually slaves to the ogres.
wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit fuzzy and on the lore on that, but I know that way back there was some kind of a deceit, and the orcs were able to free themselves from the ogres, and then they spread out through Norath. I think Gareth was the name of the ogre that helped go into Faydwer and into the woods to Faydar, and they're there with the wood elves. And what happened was when they first got in there, got into the Faydar, they had an issue with the wood elves. They wanted to kind of set themselves up in Crushbone, and obviously the wood elves weren't too happy, and they got into a war, and that's why you have the great burning that happened in Faydar. But to actually just summarize, this is pretty much that the orcs were the slaves from the ogres. The Dark Elves are trying to help them to get rid of the ogres, just to help them out. But yeah, there's a lot of bad blood between the orcs and the ogres.
Oh, I did not know. It gets some interesting context, and it's kind of making me want to go now. And I feel bad that we're gonna have to kill all the orcs now, but they don't like
They have it
gnomes.
coming.
They don't like gnomes. So now we're gonna just have to, I feel I shed a small tear as I get ready to reinvade Crushbone and put an end to them.
If it makes you feel any better, the orcs wanted to completely annihilate all the wood elves. They were trying to burn down their cities. So don't feel bad for them, all right?
Yeah. Hey, everybody, let's get ready to play some EverQuest. I'm ready to jump in if you guys are. What do you say?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Never trust an elf.
All right. Well, look, everybody listening, thank you for listening into the Return to EverQuest podcast. We're going to be back in another week and a half or so, and we look forward to having you tune in. If you can, subscribe to our podcast and rate it. If you're on Twitter, I made a Twitter handle for the podcast. It is at return number 2 EQ, at return to EQ, but the 2 is an actual number. So hit us up there, follow us, send us a message, and we look forward to going through this nostalgic journey of classic EverQuest with you and having a great time. So we'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye.